there's always one topic that makes me do things or improve myself, and it's this topic, youth. Maybe it comes from me as a teenager. It wasn't easy, like, well, most teenagers, but I've always felt like there was a message to give about being young.
Hi, I'm Maryanne Redpath, head of Berlinale Generation. It is my great pleasure today to talk together with Fred Baillif, the director of La MIF, The Femme, which will screen in the Berlinale Generation 14 Plus competition at this edition. Also joining us in the studio, in the Berlinale Meets studio, is one of his main actresses. Her name is Claudia Grob, and she plays the role of Lora. My first question is for the director, for Fred. In 2 or 3 sentences, what is the film about?
This film is about a group of teenagers, girls, who live in a foster home, a care home, and all of them have their own tragedies, but they have no idea that actually the leader of the social care, the care home, also has a tragedy, and so that we are going to learn through the story.
Alors, Précieuse, ce foyer, il accueille plusieurs jeunes qui sont dans des situations difficiles. Et ce qu'on vous propose, en tout cas, la première des choses, c'est un endroit qui est sécure. C'est-à-dire que là, maintenant, tu vas pouvoir un petit peu juste te poser. Et je voulais savoir si tu avais des questions déjà, premièrement.
Non.
D'accord. Et du coup, ils sont venus te chercher où? Ils sont venus te chercher à l'école? À la maison?
À l'école.
D'accord. Et comment ça s'est passé? L'inspecteur de la brigade des mineurs, il est venu dans ta classe?
Oui, il a toqué et puis ma prof, elle m'a appelée. Je me suis levée.
Ça a dû te faire peur?
Un peu, ouais.
Ouais. Et il a pu t'expliquer, l'inspecteur,
Oui.
ce qui se passait?
Mhm.
D'accord. Il t'a expliqué que vous alliez aller à la maison récupérer des affaires?
Oui.
Puis à la maison, il y avait quelqu'un?
Oui.
Il y avait qui?
Ma mère.
Ta maman. Et comment ça s'est passé?
Elle a hurlé. Et ils l'ont calmée, puis on est parti.
D'accord. Et puis toi?
J'étais un peu triste.
Un peu triste, ouais.
Considering the fact that to make a film these days you require an immense amount of motivation, of sustainability, you need to be able to stick at it for a long time. It takes a lot of money to make a film. So what were the major challenges that you faced in the making of the film concerning that?
The first, well, there are, of course, like always, many challenges, but the main challenge was to make sure that the girls that we worked with, who really come from this care home life, they are very fragile, and we had to make sure that they would go through the whole process of making this film with us. That was not easy, and sometimes some of them didn't show up on the set because it was quite, that's their life, that's how they are. It's difficult for most of them to really believe in themselves and to what they do. So that's the main issue. The other issue, I would say, is to finance such a project, because you know how commissions, they want to have a script, and we had a script, but there was absolutely no dialogues. And this is how I want to work, because there are dialogues that they are going to say that I could never ever be able to write. It has to come from their reality and with their own vocabulary, which means it must be improvised. And that is almost impossible to put on paper and to find finance for this. This is why we shot the movie without money, and we found all the finance after, when we had finished shooting.
So would you say that the spirit that these girls brought into the set, into the development of the film, into the making of the film, were your inspiration to keep on going?
Through the whole process, we really became a family.
Yes,
it
I
was
can imagine.
such a strong experience for each of us. All the girls in the story, they have built their own character with me. They are, it's based on who they are. but it's not reality, it's fiction. And they agreed to make it up and to do that in collaboration with us. So they are completely involved in the project. This is why we are really close.
We hear a little bit about the collaboration, the value of collaborative work in the creation of this film, La Mif. And I was going to ask you, what is it that you could bring into the mix from your experience of life and your experience as an actress into the creation of the film?
Je dirais que ce que j'ai en tout cas essayé d'amener, c'est que j'ai la conviction que pour bien éduquer les enfants, les adolescents, il faut une honnêteté émotionnelle. Et quelquefois dans le travail, on ne prend pas cette liberté-là, où on n'est pas prêt, où on n'est pas mature. Et je pense que c'est ça que j'ai pu amener. C'est cette honnêteté émotionnelle qui implique qu'il y a le respect de la personne quelle qu'elle soit et qu'on se trouve toujours à hauteur des yeux et qu'on soit le plus honnête possible avec soi et donc avec les autres.
Yeah, I would ask the next question because I don't think the people who are listening would know that you have experience as a social worker. This has been your work, your life.
Ok, oui, alors j'ai en fait tout mon parcours professionnel, je l'ai fait dans le travail de l'éducation et puis où j'ai travaillé donc et avec des petits-enfants et avec des adolescents et j'ai travaillé comme éducatrice et puis comme directrice de différentes institutions. Et je pense que voilà, c'est une profession que j'ai exercée avec beaucoup de passion et j'ai fait évidemment beaucoup d'erreurs comme beaucoup de gens, mais je pense que j'ai appris vraiment à aimer véritablement les enfants avec lesquels j'ai travaillé et quelquefois les institutions nous empêchent. En fait, le système nous empêche une certaine humanité parce qu'il y a des croyances, il y a des règles qui ne tiennent pas compte de la personnalité et du vécu de chacun des enfants.
T'es interdit, t'as pas le droit de me toucher. Arrête.
Bonjour madame, vous me dites qui vous êtes. Tu vas vers Sébastien s'il te plaît. Je suis la directrice du foyer. Vous devez être la maman de Précieuse. Alors, je suis désolée, mais là, ça va pas être possible que je vous laisse aller vers elle. On a dû vous dire ça.
Laissez-moi tranquille, madame.
Autrement, je vais devoir appeler la police. D'accord? Non, je suis désolée. Sébastien, entre avec Précieuse, s'il te plaît. Elle va rentrer avec l'éducateur et on va trouver un autre moment pour que vous puissiez la voir. Mais pas de cette façon-là. D'accord? Soit on arrive à se parler calmement et on respecte la petite.
Vous voulez me séparer de ma fille, je le sais très bien.
Pas du tout, et vous le savez parfaitement. Alors,
You know, I have read up a little bit about you and some statements you have made, so I'm very interested to hear your approach from the documental to the fictional, this journey that you make in your work. You start with the documental very, very strongly. So can you talk about that journey and why it's important for you, please?
You know, Maryanne, it's not really easy to make that move from documentary to fiction, but I always had this dream. It's inside me. You know, when I was younger, I was lacking confidence to make that move, and then I learned, you know, that there are ways to make fiction with low budget, which is what I did, and but then I think there's always one topic that makes me do things or improve myself, and it's this topic, youth. Maybe it comes from me as a teenager. It wasn't easy, you know, like, well, most teenagers, but I've always felt like there was a message to give about being young. The other thing is that when I was making documentaries, there was always a limit. The limit is the reality. I realized that I started to manipulate the reality, and I wasn't comfortable with it. I thought it was not what I always wanted to do. There was an ethical problem, and this is exactly at that time that I made my first feature fiction film called Tapis Rouge, which is where I started to manipulate the reality, where I was allowed to, because it's fiction, and I fell in love with it, and I realized that it was much stronger for me, at least, to work that way in fiction.
So my next question is about making a film during a pandemic. So the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the world of film completely for the last year, also the making of films. Did it also impact the making of this film?
In a positive way, I think, because it gave us a lot of time to edit the movie.
Ah, okay.
I had a screening, a test screening with friends, and people really liked the film and everything. But at the same time, I thought, okay, you know, we're not going to release it anyway soon, so let me just re-edit it. So I started from the scratch, the whole film. And this is where I decided to make a non-linear structure where you know you go back and forth in the time.
Last question. First of all, for Claudia, what's next for you? Anything coming up? Future projects?
Si moi j'ai des projets futurs,
Ouais.
c'est ça la question. Non, parce que cette aventure a été une découverte pour moi complètement. Et voilà, j'ai vécu cette aventure avec les filles, avec les vraies filles avec lesquelles j'ai un vécu dans la vraie vie, et les éducateurs aussi. Alors pour moi c'est terminé, et puis maintenant je sais pas, moi je suis pas une actrice, je sais pas si non, je sais pas.
I have a way to direct them to make sure that they will never ever pretend to be acting. What I do is work with non-professional actors, so all I do is take care of them. My DOP is taking care of the rest. So it's totally different.
Yes.
And we have to be careful with this. I'm telling the girls, and I'm also telling Claudia, I'm sure she has the talent, but she needs to work with someone who understands that. It's that classical cinema.
Oui, je dis, j'ai pas d'autres projets parce que la manière dont Fred nous a fait travailler fait que on pouvait être que nous-mêmes. On pouvait pas faire semblant. Donc, de là à dire que nous avons des compétences ou des talents d'acteurs, ben pour nous, c'est difficile de croire, puisqu'on a été, je pense, on a été vraiment mis dans des situations où on ne pouvait pas faire autrement que d'être comme on est.
Yes, it's fascinating. It's a discussion I could have with you for many hours, I think. I see a lot of films with young protagonists in them, and I always navigate towards exactly what you are talking about, much more than children or young people who are acting. So it's or being made to act by a director. So the authenticity is what I think you're going for in your directing, and this is your way of getting the performances that you need for your film. What about you, Fred? have you got plans for the next film? Any more projects coming up now, or you just want to see how La MIF is going to travel first?
I don't know if you want to know about them specifically, but I have 3-4 different projects. One of them is I really like is inspired by the true story of a woman who was about to become a basketball player, a professional basketball player.
Which you know a lot about, obviously, because you have been a professional basketball player yourself. Okay, close to home. Yeah, right.
It's my first passion, yeah. And I want to tell this story about this girl who was refused. There are 2 stories that I mix, actually, real stories. A girl who was refused to play in the Swiss national team because she was wearing a scarf, because she was a Muslim.
Okay.
And she was fighting for the right to play basketball with a scarf.
I'd like to thank you both for your presence. I'd like to thank you both again for this wonderful film. I look forward to meeting you in June. I hope you can all make it to Berlin in June to experience a proper Q&A with audiences and have more time to go into depth, into more detail about this film. Thank you very much.
Maryanne, can I thank you in return?
Yes, of course you can.
Oh, really? It's of course, you know how it's important for me as a filmmaker, to be in Berlinale. But you know how, I don't know how much people understand that for these girls, this is so good, so incredible, and they have no idea, and yet they are not understanding yet what's happening with the movie. And I really hope they can enjoy the audience in June and come with us, really.
Yes, we make it happen. This is so important that they get that feedback, seeing themselves on the big screen in a public arena, so to say. So we do our best to create that situation. Thank you, and au revoir, merci. It's been a pleasure.